22nd, 2021 to order. The Metropolitan Chair has determined it's not practical or prudent to conduct in-person meetings in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Accordingly, committee members participate in this meeting via telephone or other electronic means, and the meeting will be conducted under Minnesota Statutes 13D.021, date and time stated previously. We encourage you to monitor the meeting remotely. If you have comments, we encourage members of the public to email us at public.info@metc.mn.us, and we will respond in a timely manner. And we do have one member of the public that is asked to speak on the information item that we have on the agenda, and we've facilitated that process, so we'll do that at the appropriate time. So with that, can we do the roll call to see if we have quorum, please?
Barber.
Here.
Gonzalez. Johnson. I see her hand
Here.
is raised.
Sorry.
Thank you. That's okay. Thank you. Lee.
Here.
Lilligren.
Here.
Muse. Ferguson.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any updates or changes to the agenda? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the August 25th meeting of the Management Committee?
Lilligren moves.
Second by Barber.
Moved by Lilligren, seconded by Barber. Are there any comments, changes? All right, seeing none, can we call the roll, please?
Barber.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Lilligren.
Aye.
Ferguson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. The motion carries. We have 4 business items on the agenda today. The first business item is business item 2021-232, same week, a labor agreement with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 110, IBEW. Marcy?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and council members. Yes, we have an agreement with our electricians union. Their 3-year contract expired on May 1st of this year. We have a new 3-year agreement effective May 1st of 2021 through April 30th of 2024. As a reminder, the electricians are a small bargaining unit of about 38 people that perform maintenance work for environmental services. They're compensated on a total package basis that historically has followed settlements negotiated between IBEW and Construction Industry Coalition. The package, again, is a total package that covers both compensation as well as all benefits, including all paid time off, health and dental insurance, retiree medical insurance, and 2 pension plans. The settlement reached on August 24th and ratified by the membership on September 1st, again as a 3-year deal. The increase to the total package in year 1 is $2.50, and it's $2.55 in year 2 and year 3. These represent total package increases of 3.2% and 3.1%. The Thrive lens analysis under stewardship, it's a settlement that falls within the financial parameters established by council for managing labor costs and prosperity. The agreement represents, we believe, a fair and reasonable wage settlement for our employees. So our request today, proposed action, is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to enter into an agreement with IBEW local number 110, effective for the period May 1, 2021 through April 30, 2024. Take any questions?
Thank you. Are there any questions about this business item? No, seeing none, is there a motion to approve business item 2021-232, same week?
Johnson moves.
Second by Lee.
Moved by Johnson, second by Lilligren. Any other discussion? Oh,
I think it was seconded by Lee.
By Lee, correct.
sorry. Moved by Johnson, seconded by Lee. Is there any other discussion? All right, seeing none, can we call the roll, please?
Barber.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Lilligren.
Aye.
Ferguson.
Aye.
Thank
Motion
you.
carries. The second business item that we have is 2021-238, also a same week item, our voluntary vision insurance plan contract 21P083. Terry?
Mr. Chair, Marcy Cordes, Chief Labor Relations Officer. I'm here today for this business item as well.
Okay.
What we have is a proposed action for our employee vision insurance provider. Our current 3-year contract for voluntary vision services expires on December 31, 2021. This contract provides for an employee paid insurance benefit that provides discounts on eyewear, LASIK, and other services. An RFP was issued on April 26th. Council received one proposal, and that proposal was from our current incumbent, our current provider, BSP. An adequate competition evaluation was completed and determined there was no indication that the council specifications were restrictive. The evaluation panel reviewed the VSP proposal and reached consensus that the proposal submitted was economically advantageous to our employees and recommended the award. There's no rate increase, and VSP has given us a 3-year rate guarantee. The Office of Equal Opportunity reviewed this procurement for opportunities for MCUB firms and did not set a goal on this contract, as the scope of work is singular and limited to providing group voluntary insurance plans only. OEO searched for firms that could be solicited in proposing on the contract directly and determined there are no MCUBs that provide group vision insurance plans. Under the Thrive Lens analysis, our contract with VSP for voluntary vision services supports the outcome of stewardship by providing these services at a low cost for our employees. Funding is available solely through employee premium payroll deductions for this benefit. And our proposed action today is that the committee also authorized the regional administrator to negotiate and execute contract 21P083 with Vision Service Plan to provide voluntary vision services for all eligible council employees in an amount not to exceed $1.6 million.
Thank you. Any questions for Marcy? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve business item 2021-238, same week?
Moved by Barber.
Moved by Barber. Is there a second?
Johnson seconds.
Motion's been moved by Barber, seconded by Johnson. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, can we call the roll, please?
Barber.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Lilligren.
Aye.
Ferguson.
Aye.
Thank you.
The motion carries. Our third business item that we have is business item 2021-227 JT, same week. This is the third quarter budget amendment. Stewart?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Stewart McMullan, Director of Budget and Operations, and I'm bringing forward the third quarter 2021 Unified Budget Amendment. With me and available to answer questions are Phil Wall-Jasper, Acting Deputy Regional Administrator, and Heather Agason-Hebner and Ed Petrie, Finance Directors for CD and MTS and Metro Transit, respectively. This amendment makes changes to the operating budget in Regional Administration, Community Development, MTS, and Metro Transit, and the capital budget in Community Development, MTS, and Metro Transit. The proposed amendment was reviewed and approved by the Transportation Committee on September 13th and the Community Development Committee on Monday, September 20th. In regional administration, the amendment replaces the use of $1.7 million in RA reserves with the use of $1.7 million in community development reserves to support the LHIA pass-through budget for equity projects the council approved this past April. It also allows for $700,000 in OPEB reserves to be used to provide reimbursements to vaccinated council staff later this year. Phil Walljasper will describe this initiative in more detail in a few moments. In transportation, the amendment provides for an increase in salary and benefits in bus operations, light rail operations, commuter rail operations, and MTS operations, consistent with the labor contracts recently agreed to. The 2021 budget had not included salary and benefit increases, but would now be amended to provide increases in each of the council's divisions. In the capital budget, the Community Development closes 9 completed projects and amends and reallocates funds within 31 projects. Metro Transit closes 5 projects, reallocates funds among 3 projects, and adds or amends 17 projects, most notably the Gold Line BRT. MTS closes 2 projects and adds or amends 7 projects. These changes are all listed in tables 9 and 11 that are attached. With that summary, I'll ask Phil to further describe the proposed program for vaccination reimbursement in this amendment.
Thank you, Stewart. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. As Stewart mentioned, I just wanted to provide some additional details about this vaccination reimbursement. And it's related to a proposal from the council's Incident Command, which, as you know, has been set up to manage how the council responds to the pandemic. And it is an incentive for employees that can show proof of vaccination from COVID. So how this would work, employees would submit their proof of vaccination through the employee self-service tab that's been set up by Human Resources. And for those employees that submit that information by November 26th, they would receive a $150 taxable payment on their December 10th paycheck. This is open to all employees. It's regardless of when the vaccination was received. What they would need to do, though, is to submit that information through the ESS tab. So the Incident Command looked at this for quite a while, a lot of discussion on this. We looked at what other organizations were doing. And I think as anyone can read the headlines, different organizations do things differently, but we felt that this was the appropriate response to help further move the needle and how the council manages the pandemic and how we can further move the needle on the vaccination percentages as well. We think it's a good approach. It's the right amount. And this business item, this amendment is going to be to pay for that initiative. So with that, Mr. Chair and committee members, I'll turn it back to Stewart, but I'm here to answer questions on this at the end of the business item. So Stewart, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Phil. Again, this is Stewart McMullan. Are there any further questions on this amendment? If approved, the amendment will be heard at tonight's full council meeting. The motion is that the Metropolitan Council authorizes the 2025-2021 unified budget as amended and in accordance with the attached tables.
Thank you, Stuart. Are there any questions? No. Okay. I will just note for this committee that I asked the staff just think about, following the lead of Delta and some other companies are potentially providing a discount or other incentive for people that are vaccinated, just given that we would expect to have a lower cost of healthcare for vaccinated employees versus unvaccinated employees. We just think about what that might look like for the next calendar year. So that may be something we come back with, or maybe something that we determine as not practical at this time. But I think it's important that we just think about what the impacts of having unvaccinated people are on our healthcare costs, and that we're properly budgeting for those costs in 2022 and going forward. So with that, is there a motion to approve The business item 2021-227, JT, same week. Third quarter budget amendment.
Moved by Barber.
Moved by Barbara. Is there a second?
Second by Lee.
Moved by Barbara, seconded by Lee. Is there any other discussion? All right, seeing none, can we call the roll, please?
Barber.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Lilligren.
Aye.
Ferguson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, and the motion carries. Our last business item that we have is business item 2021-243, JT, PFAS Legal Services Contract. This is contract 21P096 for legal services. Daniel?
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. I'm Daniel Abelson. I'm an Associate General Counsel in the Office of General Counsel. I also have with me today David Brown, who's a Principal Engineer in Plant Engineering. This is for a large and long-term contract for outside counsel and potential expert consultants to address PFAS issues. This is a contract for 5 years and up to $5 million. The presentation I'm going to go through today will provide a little bit of background on the PFAS issue, its potential impact to council wastewater operations, and the need for outside counsel in this contract. Next slide, please. So PFAS is short for a family of chemicals called per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. You may have also heard them referred to as forever chemicals. They were used in all sorts of applications, including non-stick coating, Gore-Tex, firefighting foam, fabric sprays to prevent stains. They were used in metal plating as a surfactant. And there's several reasons why PFAS is a concern to the public and to the council specifically. There's studies showing that PFAS has health risks, and these are called forever chemicals because they're persistent in the environment and in the human body. This chart on this slide is a chart from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency that shows the PFAS cycle and wastewater treatment. I'm not going to go through each element of the slide, but I think what you can see generally here is that PFAS comes from multiple sources, such as industries, drinking water, landfills, and goes to wastewater treatment plants, or can get to surface and groundwater through other means. Because PFAS is persistent, it also can be circular. And wastewater treatment plants receive PFAS, but they don't produce it, and MCS has no current ability to treat it. So just one example from this chart is the landfill example. You can see that PFAS treated materials and packaging and other things end up in landfills. Then landfills create leachate, and because the materials that come into the landfill have PFAS, the leachate has PFAS. The leachate then goes to the wastewater treatment plant, and because they can't be treated in the wastewater treatment plant, some of it is discharged in the water, some of it ends up in the solids. At many of our plants, our solids are then incinerated. The ash likely still has some residual PFAS in it, and then that ash goes back to a landfill. So this is an issue that doesn't have easy solutions as far as getting rid of PFAS. And council staff have been working on PFAS-related issues for some time. Starting over a decade ago, at that time it appeared that there were going to be some standards from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency that could result in permit limits that at that time were not attainable. The council at that time engaged legal counsel to assist in PFAS strategy and participated as a party in the 3M litigation that the state was involved in. From the council's perspective, I think staff believe that these efforts were successful because the MPCA changed its approach and did not impose permit limits at that time. PFAS issues, however, have taken on new prominence, and council staff are again taking steps to address these issues. For example, MCS staff have formed a PFAS charter team, and some of the duties of the charter team include developing and documenting a broad understanding of how PFAS are distributed in Minnesota and in MCS wastewater treatment plants and how they may be regulated in Minnesota, ensuring that MCS has the data it needs to develop a permitting strategy and to engage with stakeholders, and developing a cadre of staff who have the background skills to support MCS's current and future response to PFAS. And as part of this work, the council's identified a need to retain outside counsel with extensive PFAS knowledge and expertise in municipal wastewater treatment permitting. Next slide, please. So there's, as I mentioned, there's numerous efforts going on both in the federal and Minnesota level to address PFAS. A few of these are the 3M settlement in the East Metro area, which has an impact on future drinking water planning. And of course, that's drinking water that ends up at council wastewater treatment plants eventually. It includes the Minnesota PFAS blueprint, which was put together by the Pollution Control Agency and other agencies. And that blueprint includes the potential for further monitoring of PFAS and wastewater effluent, air emissions, and potentially in other media that impact wastewater treatment plants, and as well as developing water quality standards that could potentially require wastewater treatment plants to remove or otherwise address PFAS. On the federal level, there's been recent announcements from the EPA on a PFAS testing methodology for wastewater so that we're all using the same methods to test. And also recent announcements on steps to address PFAS in certain industries whose discharges end up at wastewater treatment plants. And these efforts have the potential to impact almost all areas of council wastewater operations. And again, MCS doesn't currently have the technical capability to treat PFAS. So I just want to talk through one specific issue that's going on now that's not the sole reason for the need for outside counsel, but it highlights the need for outside counsel and is a good example of the potential impact of PFAS regulation on wastewater treatment plant operations. So the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency recently created what might be the most stringent water quality criteria in the country for PFOS. And PFOS is a type of PFAS, and it's one of the ones that there's some of the most data on. This criteria could impact the council plants whose discharges end up in the Mississippi. This is what's called the site-specific criteria, which means that MCS is the only impacted municipal wastewater organization in Minnesota. The criteria that the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency has set in the river is 0.05 nanograms per liter, or that's parts per trillion for PFAS. And to give you a sense of the scale of that number, the only other state that MCS is aware of that has a surface water standard for PFAS is Michigan. And the standard in Michigan is 11 and 12 nanograms per liter, or parts per trillion in surface water. So in other words, it's about 240 times higher in Michigan. Similarly, the Minnesota Department of Health has set a health-based value for PFOS in drinking water. And that value's 15 nanograms per liter, or 300 times greater than the surface water criteria in the Mississippi. So in other words, you could run your sink and have 300 nanograms per liter of PFOS in the water, and according to the Department of Health, it would be safe to drink. But the water that went down the drain instead of in your cup, when it gets to the wastewater treatment plant and eventually in the Mississippi River, is now at a level that's 300 times above that water quality criteria. So one of the tasks of outside counsel will be to help the council develop a legal strategy to address the implications of this water quality criteria. And more broadly on the PFAS issue, the range of outcomes with PFAS could range anywhere from the council expanding PFAS monitoring, working closely with industry, governments, and others to reduce PFAS that the council receives, to the council potentially having to fundamentally alter its wastewater operations and make capital improvements on an enormous scale. So one of the purposes of this legal services contract is to develop a legal strategy to deal with PFAS in a way that benefits the regions while protecting the ratepayers. In other words, while this is a large contract, one key goal of the contract is to avoid much larger expenses. And to do that, the council requires special counsel with PFAS knowledge and legal expertise to help staff address these regulatory issues, including, as we've talked about, the discharges under the NPDES permits, land application of biosolids, incineration of sludges, as well as the industrial waste and pollution prevention program. Next slide, please. So the selected special counsel here must have extensive experience in PFAS, municipal wastewater permitting, and relevant state and federal environmental regulatory laws, regulations, and processes. So this is an area of the law it's complex, it's evolving, it's multifaceted. And the council needs to be nimble to react to the state and federal regulators, the evolving science, and these are processes that, while they're changing quickly, they also take time. So that's why this is structured as a 5-year contract to give the council the ability to take the long view and hire a firm that's committed for the long haul. At this point, we don't know what all the potential solutions are and issues that the firm may need to address because we don't yet know what may arise. I want to be clear, though, that this contract is not carte blanche permission for outside counsel to spend $5 million. The Office of General Counsel and MCS will be closely overseeing the work. We set this at a $5 million number to cover a potential myriad of costs over 5 years if the expenditures are necessary. It's likely that outside counsel may be addressing several different PFAS fronts at once. They may need to hire multiple experts to conduct different types of PFAS studies. And bringing this large contract to the council now as a single contract was designed to cover these legal costs and to impress how important these issues are to the council. Next slide, please. So, procurement solicited proposals for PFAS legal services here on May 12th. The Office of Equal Opportunity did not assign an MCUB goal for this highly specialized project. 8 proposals were received. The evaluation panel held consensus meetings on July 14th and July 15th. The 3 highest ranked proposers were then interviewed on July 23rd and July 26th. And the evaluation panel reached consensus that Barnes & Thornburg LLP was the highest ranked and technically qualified firm to perform the services required for this project. Next slide, please. So the proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council authorize its regional administrator to negotiate and execute a contract for PFAS legal services, projects 807-849 and 808-941, contract number 21P096 to Barnes & Thornburg LLP for legal services, including legal advice and consultation on PFAS related issues in an amount not to exceed $5 million. Mr. Chair and committee members, I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there, can we close down the presentation? Are there any questions? No questions. So, I think this is a difficult issue, right? Because you really have sort of, some ways, two sides of the government. One part of the administration is putting rules in place that's going to potentially incur costs on another part of the administration. So it is an interesting spot. It is a very, very particular legal space. 20 some odd, 26, 7 years ago when I was doing my master's work in this space, it was back then a lot less was known. More is known today, but nobody's ever come up with really a solution for truly getting rid of PFAS chemicals and other similar chemicals that show up in the groundwater. So I think it's one of those situations where hopefully we don't have to spend the money, but I think we need some outside experts to help our team. So with that, if there are any questions or any other questions, otherwise, can I get a motion to approve? Business
Lilligren moves. Oh,
moved by
sorry.
Lilligren. Is there a second?
Lilligren.
Yep, moved by Lilligren, seconded by
Second by Barber.
business item 2021-243 JT was moved by Lilligren, seconded by Barber. Any other comments or questions? All right, seeing none, can we call the roll, please?
Barber.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Lilligren.
Aye.
Ferguson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the motion carries. That is all we have for business items. We have, on the information item side, we have one information item. It is a summary of our business engagement survey results. Ashanti and Thomas will be presenting.
Thank you, Chair, Council members. Good afternoon, Ashanti Payne, Assistant Director, Office of Equal Opportunity. And I am here with Tomas Mebrahtu, Equal Opportunity Consultant with the newly formed Engagement and Development Unit within the Office of Equal Opportunity. And we are pleased to be here this afternoon to share the results and summarization of a survey that was conducted with small businesses and prime bidders on council procurements and projects. We were pleased with the response rate. We had the opportunity to hear from over 350 certified small businesses, and you'll see some of that data in a little bit. And then also our action plan, what we learned, and what is our action plan for addressing and getting to some more equitable outcomes when it comes to inclusion of certified small businesses in our procurements. Part of what you have too today is the more detailed reports as a handout that has all of the information. We're just going to highlight some of the things that we found that were interesting or that got our attention, and then again, what is our plan of action? One of the things I will want to point out is that in terms of responses, we did just copy and paste from the survey. We did not want to make assumptions about what people were trying to say. So we did leave any perceived spelling and grammatical errors that we perceived in the responses. But we really feel that this really outlines the importance, one, of being able to now have an engagement and development unit, and then the work that needs to be done moving forward. So with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Tomas Mebrahtu, who led this survey week work, and with support from OEO Small Business Unit.
Thank you, Ashanti, and good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Council members. My name is Thomas Mebrahtu. I've been with the Met Council for almost close to 5 months now, and I'm delighted to be here to quickly walk you through this the small business survey and action plan. As Ashanti mentioned, this is a combined shorter version of those two surveys that we did for primes and small businesses. And next slide, please. As you see, the presentation is structured as you see, like we walk you through first to the background information, summary of how and why the survey was conducted, and we go through quickly to the results, what we found out about from the survey, and like Ashanti mentioned, we're gonna walk you through the conclusions or recommendations that we found out based on the surveys that we conducted. Next slide, please. The purpose of this survey, as you can see, it was to collect relevant information from both prime contractors and certified small business, which is DBE and MCAP firms, that will help our agency to make targeted improvements to the small business programs, outreach, and support services. Next slide, please. And one of the methodology that we used was, like I said, it was two surveys. One was for prime contractors, one was for our DB and MCAP firms. We gave them about 3 weeks, which is we opened the survey on July 7. It went through July 27. And our target population were about 69 prime contractors or proposers and about 2,000 DBE and MCAP firms. Thank you. Next slide, please. Design, you can click. Yeah, the questions of the surveys, there were about 7 questions to our small business and 9 to prime contractors. The delivery method was we used web-based with Microsoft Form, which, as you all know, the online surveying is very efficient, faster, and more accurate, and it's easy and quick that you can do quick analysis, and also it was easy to our small businesses or primes for to use this kind of survey. Yep. Next slide, please. We did send 2 follow-up emails, and all the submissions were confidential or anonymous. Go ahead. I can just walk you through this. The questionnaires that we came up for our prime contractors were about 5, but there were some follow-up questions that goes with that. So it was, we asked their business name and if they have any experience bidding on or performed as a prime in our Met Council projects, and if they have any difficulty in acquiring DB or getting DB or MCAP subcontractors. And also we did ask if they are interested in to participate in our mentor protege programs. Next slide. Same for our DB, we did ask their business name and also if they know how to find contracting opportunities with our Met Council projects, and if they were ever have experience bidding as a prime or subcontractor for Met Council projects. And also we did ask them if they were awarded or not. And also we asked what kind of barriers they face in bidding on Met Council projects. Also, we ask if there is any technical assistance they would like us to offer. And at the end, we ask them if they are interested in participating in the mentor protege program, the same as we ask primes. So quickly here, what we were trying to get from this survey was we want to try to get to hit those 4 areas. From our DBs or MCAP firms, we wanted to know their knowledge of how if they know how to find or contracts opportunities with Met Council. And also we wanted to learn about if there's any barriers they face in bidding on a Met Council projects. Also, we wanted to learn if they need any technical assistance or they request any type of technical assistance that we can support them. At the end, we ask them if they are interested in participating in the mentor project program. same thing for our prime contractors. We ask them if they have any bid experience on our projects, and also what barriers they face in getting or obtaining DBE or MCAP subcontractors, and also what kind of scopes of work that our RDBs or MCAPs are lacking for to do their projects. At the end, we ask them if they are interested, or we wanted to gauge if their interest in participating in the mentor project program. Next slide, please. Like Ashanti mentioned, the response rate was great, and like you see, prime contractors about 28, which is about 41% we received, and from the DB MCAP, there was about 346 small business that they responded to our survey. Next slide. There we go. Their breakdown by the industry type. The top one was construction type of work, and the second one you can see the administrative and general management consultant services that were top that from our respondents. Next slide. This is also breakdown by respondents' gender and ethnicity, which is for our small businesses. As you can see, the graph says like the non-minority, which is the Caucasian owned firms, were in the top, which is about 192, about I think 55% of respondents were that. And the second one was the African American or Black American owned businesses. And then Hispanic and some Asian Pacific American. Next slide, please. Interesting part. Okay, we did this, and what were our results? When we ask our small businesses, DBs or MCAPs, if they know how to find contracting opportunities with the Met Council, here's what they say. Can you click, please? All right, about 57% they said they don't know how to find contracting opportunities, which is very interesting. And about 43 said, yes, they do know. So there's a little bit gap in here, and that's something that we will do something to figure out what we can do next. The next one, we ask our prime contractors or proposers if they have ever bid or performed as a prime contractors for our projects. And very interesting in here, from those 28, about 27 of them said yes. And this is very good. I just wanted to point out on this that to receive feedback from someone who knows the in and out of our program is very important for us, and we really appreciate that these are our primes that they have experience working on our Met Council projects, and they do know about the small business programs. So it was very helpful to receive feedbacks from those who are already know about the small business programs. Next slide, please. When we continue to our next question, we ask our DBs if they have ever bid as a prime or subcontractor. And this is where we found out that about 66% said they don't, and about 34% said yes. And the next question that we ask for our prime contractors, if they have any difficulty in obtaining or getting DB MCAP subcontractors. This was also very interesting result that we found out. As you can see, it was split like 50-50%. And to me, from my previous experience, I thought that the negative response would be higher than the positive, but 14 of those 28 said they don't have any difficulty, but the rest 50% said yes, they do have. And the next slide, we'll find out those 14 that said that they do have a problem. So the type of difficulty that they face, as you can see, those 11 response that we get was DB or MCAP do not have the skill or expertise to do the work. And the other 11 response that were DB, MCAP do not respond to solicitation inquiries in a timely manner. And there was like 9 that response that we got other, and then we found out what the other options were. And there was 8 response that say DB MCAP do not have the equipment or capacity to perform the work. Next slide, please. So these are some of the selections that we point out for you. Like when they select other, they did mention that it's timing issue. The time most DBs they don't respond in a timely manner. And also there was one response that we received, DBE or MCAP information not accurate or correct. And the other one that stood out for us was also difficulty that scopes of work that prime contractors need from DBs and MCAPs. Next slide. And we did ask our small businesses for those 120 that they said they do have experience working with our small Met Council projects. So this is also interesting from those 120 that they say they did they ever tried to bid on our projects. 80 of them or 67% said they were awarded the project, and 32% said they don't, and 1% they just left it open, they didn't respond to anything. Next slide, please. So the barriers that our small businesses face when trying to bid on our projects, there were about 313 responses that we put out, and for detailed information, you can find it on Appendix A. But the top most identified barriers were, number one, lack of knowledge on how and where to find contract opportunities. Number two was finding applicable work scopes. Number three, lack of resource. Some of them have already said none. And next one, please. Council projects are too big. Also, okay, go. Oh, and council communication issues, we'll find out what they're trying to say on that. And the required paperwork and forms, fairness in procurement. Those are also the top most identified barriers that we found out. The next section, please. All right, these are some selection of comments that we just was just stood out for us, and you guys can learn something about this. You can see the number one was the lack of knowledge and how to get Met Council projects, and the others are also some competing with larger contractors, and also you can see the fourth one that we say not all primes send bid solicitation for every Met Council project. Difficult to compete against larger competitors who have price advantages. Next slide. Also here, still the second one, the short period of response time used in the ask needed to be expanded, letting us know in advance, weeks or months before that an RFP will be issued allows us time to prepare. The last one that stood out for us was systemic and structural racism backed into the how the Met Council does its business. This was some selection of response that we received. The barriers, we just put it in group and categorize it, and then you can see the top one was lack of knowledge where to find projects. Next one was about 37 people said applicable scopes of work. The other one, they said they don't have any barriers. They were about 37, and 33 people, they didn't answer anything on the question that we put out. But you can see the top one was lack of knowledge, where we need to do a lot of plans on it. So next slide, please. What are the scopes of work that prime contractors would like to see more DBs or MCAPs that? So these are most identified scopes, which about 5 responses said they don't need anything, but 4 responses said all scopes of work. Then you can see the electrical work, concrete work, mechanical work, asphalt work, landscape, and design work. And if you just pay attention, those like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 5 work scopes are just construction related work scopes that they are trying to see the small businesses have more scopes. So next slide, please. Top selections, when we ask technical assistance that the DBE would like to see the council offer, a lot of them said, about 46 said they don't need any technical assistance, but about 44 said they need to learn how to find opportunities and bidding assistance and training. Some of them are saying that, yeah, they're not sure. and you can see the the RFP process, networking, have small projects, set aside small projects. That's what the most top selections were. Next slide, please. The last question that we asked was about their participation on the Mentor Protege program. When we asked this question to prime contractors, 6 businesses had already participated in the Mentor Protege versus those 20 they have not. And those 6 businesses were again willing to mentor our small businesses. And from those 22 who had not participated, 14 of them are willing to mentor, and 4 state that they need more information about the program, and 4 said they're not interested. So for those 4 who said they're not interested, we just wanted to know what could be their reason, and here's what they say. Can you please? Okay, one of them said it's too much of a risk to mentor a new firm. The other one said had not had success with mentoring in the past. And the other one said do not have time to be a mentor. And the last one said not sure what this program is about, and also continued to say they do not have time to be a mentor. These were the 4 reasons that they come out when we asked them what was their reason for not interested. How about our small businesses? When we ask this question, the same question that we ask our primes, 89 said they're interested, which is about 26%, and about 85 people said they don't need it, and 172, which is about 50%, they need more information on the mentor protege. Next slide, please. All right. So with that, I will hand it over to Ashanti Payne, and he will walk us through the conclusions and recommendations on both the surveys that we found out.
Thank you. Again, Ashanti Payne, Assistant Director, Office of Equal Opportunity. So what did we find out, and what are our strategies moving forward? It was really interesting that the number one response from small businesses is a lack of knowledge on where to find contracts. We do have a contracts page. We also make efforts relative to either when we don't set goals to provide direct opportunities and solicitations to disadvantaged business enterprises and MCUB businesses. And a lot of times we don't get bids. So we spent a lot of time discussing this internally with the small business unit. And one of the things is closing that loop and doing that work of, okay, when there are opportunities to bid as a prime, when we don't select goal, and there are DBEs and MCUBs to do the work, closing that loop and finding out the reasons why they did not bid or provide a quote or proposal, and then understanding how we can fix that and that perception relative to the opportunities. Because what we're doing right now is not working in terms of getting the word out, finding where they fit. So we need to understand that. So we have individuals in place with support to help us track from the Office of Procurement to be able to get at those answers. And then the ability to be able to connect those businesses to the right places and finding applicable work that meets their services that they provide and the work that they do. So some of the things that we have been doing, we're going to continue to do because they're working, which includes the meet and greet sessions that we have been conducting with individual business units and business entities. And we have even started to measure the results in terms of, has this resulted in increased contracting for these businesses? And we're finding that it has. It is producing results. So that's something that we're going to continue to do, as well as making sure that we have opportunities to even expand on that, and do open houses for businesses, because not only do we understand that, that they're not finding the opportunities, but there's also a perception about the council that we are not open, that we've already chosen who we want to work with, and you'll see that in the responses, in the data, in the more detailed data. And then, of course, council projects being too big, we have to work with business units relative to building strategies early on in the planning and scoping phases to find out where there are opportunities to break off pieces of work where we have sufficient numbers of MCUB and DBE businesses, and those parts that don't present a significant risk to the council. And then, because we definitely understand that small businesses do not have, or are not going to compete in all cases with larger companies who don't have the same overhead. I always use the example of, the council, we're shopping at Costco, and small businesses are shopping at Cub and Menards, and so their pricing in a lot of cases are going to be higher. Also, one of the things that we have been working on and received some feedback on is development of an equity lens tool. So we have added additional questions and considerations to the OEO small business intake form that will help business units understand, take considerations, think about ways to, like I previously mentioned, break off smaller parts of the work, provide outreach efforts prior to RFPs, and things that will help identify and facilitate intentional efforts with small businesses. So again, we've added questions to that form, such as if this procurement is going to result in an RFP, did you do any outreach or engagement with small businesses ahead of time? If not, why not? But the other part about the equity lens tool, it's good to have that on the front end and to have those considerations, thoughts, and questions be addressed. But also, it's going to require oversight and accountability, which will need to come from department leads and division leads, to make sure that there is accountability relative to those efforts. And again, focused outreach and engagement. I already talked about the meet and greet sessions, also open houses and informational sessions. One of the things that we'll be doing here on October 13th, we are holding an HVAC informational session, and we did a video to show and demonstrate the equipment that is used in our HVACs, the work that we procure in both installation and maintenance of those services. And I think we have about 12 small businesses that have signed up to participate in that, and we're working with facilities at Metro Transit and in environmental services is participating in that as well.
Hey, Ashanti,
Yes.
just instead of reading through all of these, just will all these be done by the end of the year, or when's the time frame for them to be done? Are they all budgeted already? And then what do you think will be the impact? How much do we expect the numbers to move when you get all of this work done?
Yes, some of them are already underway. Most, if not all, will be done by the end of the year, and we will measure results. I'll just talk about one instance in terms of like best practices to be utilized, and then I can pause for we can pause and be available for questions from council members. We invited the San Diego area of governments to come and talk about a program that they've used called the Bench program, and it's just at a high level. It's was their focus was architectural and engineering firms, and they could apply to be on the bench. And so when on these larger contracts and other contracts, when there's work orders that were issued, they could go directly to the bench and pull these businesses off to perform those work areas. And their results were they went from working with 15 to working with 78 disadvantaged business enterprise firms, and they increased payments from 9.4 million to 50.4 million. So those are the kinds of measurements and data that we want to come back and share from these results.
Great, thank you. We have one member of the public that wanted to make comments on this business item. Why don't we hear those comments first, and then we can open it up to questions to others. Frederick?
Hey, good afternoon, Chair and council members. I wanted to speak to what Ashanti and Tomas just talked about around the engagement. And we are, I'm the president of a company called UpNet Technologies, and we do supplier diversity tracking as well as construction management and other solutions in the area of the Met Council. And I've actually been beating down Ashanti's door trying to get in to talk to you guys about this. But one of the recommendations that I had around this too is building out a registration page for the smaller businesses or all businesses to that fact. And what we did, we worked with the Association of Women Contractors to build out a solution for them. And it was a bid management solution. We bid it out for them. So primes could not waste their time trying to look for women-owned contractors. They were able to drop their bids into the solution that we built out for them. And then it routed it to the registered vendors or contractors who were registered in those NICS codes or programmatic codes that the prime contractor is looking for. And when I read this and the study I know about the Metropolitan Council, if you used your code system of how you let your bids and how you purchase and procure, there could be a way that we could route this to businesses to be able to understand how the bids are going out and how the bids should be responded to, which would eliminate a lot of the disconnect for the smaller businesses. And what I found out with us working with the Association of Women Contractors is that the prime contractors love not having to call a contractor or speak with a contractor, but actually route it to the exact contractors that are in their field of business. And then they can have a dialogue about that between the businesses. And then it eliminated them having to have an extra resource to call small businesses or anything like that. But we think with a tool like ours and one that could help you understand who's out there, and then also it could track on the backside. We're doing this for the University of Minnesota. We do all of their RFP scoring and all of their RFP routing back to management on their minority participation and also all of their RFP letting. And we worked with them for several months to understand their process procedures. And then we built the technology around it to shorten the process and also give clarity around the communication between the prime contractors and the subcontractors as well. So there is ways, I think, in which this could be supported. And I appreciate you guys building this out and even looking at the report and even talking to it, because we are a minority business as well, and we work out in the world. And I understand a lot of what's been reported back to you through the survey that was done. And I'm thinking that, you know, with a conversation with you and learning more about where you guys want to go, we can potentially help you out. We're local, we're smart. We do about 40 million business transactions a month with major corporations in the Twin Cities area. We understand business relationships. And I think this is solvable for our state in a big way about who you see in the queue and then who the prime contractors can communicate to pull out of the queue to be a subcontractor for them. We also did all the data for the US Bank Stadium build. And what we put in process there was we tracked all of the prime and subcontractors' relationships. And then we opened up the dialogue, and they exceeded all of their goals on the stadium because the visibility was there, and the ease of use for the prime contractors was there also for them to be able to communicate with small and minority businesses. So I just wanted to say, and I shared with Ashanti that, you know, I would come on and talk about this, that we could support, and that there's also solutions out there for what you're dealing with right now. And it's a very visible issue across the country. And we probably have talked to, within the last 3 months, over 15 different agencies, from the Department of Transportation to the councils across the country, about our solution and what we've done for others around that. I appreciate this time that I've had to speak with all of you, and I'm hoping I get a follow-up from you. And Chris, thanks for connecting with me on LinkedIn. We'll follow up and talk. But I just wanted to share with you, this is great data that you're pulling up, but also there's solutions out there that can support you that I know of.
Great, thank you, Frederick. Any comments from council members? Councilmember Lee.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Ashanti. Could you please tell us a little bit more about the equity lens tool? Is that already developed, and what kind of rubric does that look like, and who developed it?
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Lee, thank you for that question. It was developed, and it was originally developed as an intake tool to help us get the information we need to properly evaluate procurements for goals, for subcontracting goals. However, through various conversations, and it was developed by our small business unit, specifically Megan Solberg developed it. And when I went back to talk to both Elaine and Megan and say, hey, I'm working on this equity lens, and they just said, well, we've been talking to project managers, and they're saying they just want to get, you know, what we need, and, you know, the back and forth, how do we eliminate that? And they were on the same page. So we said, let's just add some additional questions on the intake form, like, did you consider breaking out any portions of this work to facilitate small business participation? If not, why? Again, the question relative to RFPs, did you do any initial outreach and engagement work with MCUB or DBE businesses, and some other questions that really we thought it wasn't appropriate to add it to the SIM process or create an additional form, because these types of questions and considerations should happen well before the SIM process.
Thank you, Shani.
Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is just really, really good information. I appreciate the depth that you've gone into, and kind of on the comments that were just made about who can we leverage to help build our efforts to scale and further impact to boost our numbers in the direction we want them to go. I think I've maybe brought this up before, but are there other organizations as well? So I like the fact that, you know, working with the United Association of Women Contractors, I might have forgot the acronym there, but even groups like MEDA or chambers of commerce that are focused on minority-owned businesses that are trying to provide resources and contact and connection. They're, you know, in that realm of economic development and business development. And I'm just wondering, do we have relationships with them, or are there ways to weave in some of the efforts that are, you know, we heard about just now during our public comment? I guess I'm just trying to make sure that we're leveraging partnerships in any way we can with groups that are specifically working to make owning and operating a small business as a Black, Indigenous, or person of color, which is not easy, or woman. It's not easy in any sense of it, but certainly for BIPOC and women, I'm just wondering where are we at with that, so that we're trying to just, again, even I was even a little surprised where some of them are just having a hard time finding out where the information is and how to get it. And, you know, even though it's on our website at Met Council, I really appreciate that, but I have a hard time finding stuff on our Met Council website because it's so big, right? So trying to get things streamlined and simplified, I think, is the goal here. And just curious about what our efforts have been around that, or how could they be incorporated into this plan?
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Johnson. Yes, those are very good questions. I'll start by saying that, yes, we have relationships with organizations such as the Association of Women Contractors, National Association of Minority Contractors, and I guess it's just good timing or a coincidence that earlier this week we had a meeting with the Equity Advisory Committee's Operations Subcommittee, and they agreed to assist us in bringing in the chambers and some of those organizations that work with these businesses, so that we can foster those relationships and then also connect us with businesses that we can then say, hey, we want to host a meet and greet or open house with this specific business unit, so that you can get introduced, familiar, understand where the opportunities are, and make those connections. So the EAC Operations Subcommittee has agreed to help us do that and facilitate that work moving forward. Because yes, it was alarming to us too, that the number one response or barrier identified was the lack of knowledge of how to identify opportunities.
Mr. Chair, could I have a follow-up?
Go ahead.
That's great. I really, really appreciate too leveraging the EAC. I know they're very, very eager to help and support in this area. And in addition, you know, these organizations like MEDA, even the Department of Employment and Economic Development, I mean, they all work around NAICS codes, and they all are trying to bring dollars and resources to BIPOC owned businesses. In fact, there's a current grant out now that DEED is offering up. And if it's a BIPOC business that's been impacted by COVID negatively over the past year, and there's some other criteria, but the deadline is coming up. And I know, you know, I don't know how much we intersect with DEED, but this I think is in their wheelhouse. And again, MEDA, you know, I think we should take some of those, whoever our contact person would be at organizations like that. I think we should be proactive and take those meetings and find out how they at minimum can promote what we're trying to do, and at maximum, again, build our pipeline and make it much easier for us to tap into the networks where we just haven't reached it. I think it really goes to the phrase, just meeting people where they're at. So appreciate all this hard work. This is a very, very good report. Appreciate the survey. But I think, you know, I think I've kind of been saying this a few times. There are organizations out there that I think would readily welcome this type of opportunity, because the business is waiting for them, and we'd like to make sure that those communities receive their fair share.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, council members. We will definitely take that advice in those actions. Thank you.
Any other comments from council members? Sean, do you have a sense, you know, obviously we've been doing some of these things already. I mean, what's going to be different that's going to move the needle? So we actually, you know, a year from now, we double our spend, let's say with minority-owned businesses. Are any of these things that you're seeing that are significant enough that we would expect to see a change?
Yeah, I think there's no one thing that I can say that this is the magic thing that's gonna change everything. I think it's definitely taking a holistic approach. It's gonna require some change to some of our systems and processes that have been around for a long time. But I think, like I said, the biggest areas, if you looked at that data, when the small businesses do quote or they do bid, most of the time that they're successful. So we've really got, so if we can just increase the amount of those businesses who are bidding and providing quotes and proposing to us, the success rate I thought was pretty good. I think it was, what was it, 67%, I believe, from the data. So, but the majority of them are not even those responded are not providing bids and quotes, and don't even know where to find the opportunities. So if I had to just point at one thing where some of those efforts will go, it would be to that. And then also identifying those places where perception meets reality and they cross. There is that perception in terms of some of our processes, especially with the RFP process, that, you know, the way they're written and how the process is laid out, that we already have made our choice in terms of who we want to work with. And I think we know for sure, not just from businesses owned by people of color and women, but consultants in general, if they've had no communication, if they don't know any of your priorities or strategies, they're not going to submit a proposal, because that's the message that they're getting. You've already made that decision. So that's definitely also an area of focus. And I think that's an area where we're working with procurement to kind of get at some of those issues.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, I think that's a valid point. I know we don't generally bid on things unless it's somebody that we know, and for that very reason, right? So, you know, it's not worth the time and effort to do it, and so you really kind of have to sometimes almost convince people that there's a fair shot. It's not that you need to know you're going to win the business, but that it's not already basically wired to somebody else. And you know, as we approve contracts, right, we see a number of them that appear to, you know, there's one bidder comes back, you know, the scope was written in such a way that it seems like, you know, while we determined it was fair competition, it seems like, you know, one business may have been better set up to more competitively, you know, to bid on something. So, and just the industry generally you know, there's a lot of oligopolies in various parts of the markets that we look for services, which makes it very, very challenging, right? So, you know, there's only two bus manufacturers, and there's only, you know, there's even in some of our bigger things. So, I would be curious to see what this data, you know, for that, who was awarded work on sort of a disaggregated basis, right? So, you know, 180 people or so, 86% of the people were awarded work, but are, you know, of the 80 or 79 of them, you know, white women, or, you know, is it a broad mix across, you know, all of the groups? Or, you know, I think it's curious to look at sort of that disaggregated data and who's getting the work from the response piece. So, you know, and I think, I know there was a spot in the camera. You know, I think we are, you know, I think we're at the point now where we are trying to find, you know, we're trying to get highly creative in finding ways of, you know, moving the needle, right? We're in the same spot that all of our peer agencies are. Everybody's trying to figure this out, and none of us, you know, state of Minnesota, you know, none of us have really figured out how to significantly change, you know, the outcomes over the last 3 years, 4 years that Governor Walz has been in office, and we'd all like to, right? So, you know, we keep working with really smart people on our team like Ashanti and Tomas and others, and looking at data and listening to people, and thinking very creatively and what can we do differently, and learning from people that maybe have found different success in other cities. So I think I'm encouraged to hear that we're, you know, looking at San Diego and other cities, and bringing in thought leadership from other places in the country. So so I think it's it's absolutely great. It's what we need to be doing. So any other thoughts, any other questions, anything you need from us to make this happen?
Well, that's definitely a good question. I think the one main thing that we are strategizing now about is how can we best utilize and leverage the equity grant funding that we got to address some of this. And so we are really, that's kind of, tops on the priority list. We do recognize it's only 200,000. So the importance of making good decisions with that is going to be key and critical moving forward. So again, I appreciate the council members' passion and efforts in this work. Thus far, I haven't heard a no from council members. So hopefully that will continue to be yes when we come back to ask for other support and efforts.
Great. And the only other thing I would add is that many of the council members have great relationships with organizations around the region. So, if there are places where you think it makes sense to have partnerships, really leverage those council member relationships to think about how we can engage others in the region to partner to do this work, better, learn from others, help others, right? Where there are things that we do really well, and help others learn from what we do. But so really, I would just say just leverage all of those council members and those relationships and knowledge that the people have. So with that, are there any other final comments? All right, seeing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.